This is the Extensionists, Conversations with Great Thinkers in Agriculture. I'm Toban Dyck.
And I'm Jay Whetter. Hey, Toban.
Hey, Jay.
I was in Cornwall, England, land of the Whetters, last April, 2024.
Yeah.
And
Tell me about this.
Yeah, I met a farmer named Jeremy Odie, and he has a very diverse, very interesting farm. He grows canola, well, they call it rapeseed, peas, barley, wheat, malting barley for the brewers in Cornwall. He grows onions and potatoes, and he semi-processes them. He gets them ready to go right into bakers who bake Cornish pasties, which is like the most famous dish out of Cornwall, which is actually a hand pie that you can put in your pocket.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Jeremy sends me an email, and he says, we're thinking of coming to Manitoba. Can you give us a tour? Which
so
I'd offer.
Has this happened already, or is this like he hasn't yet?
It's going to happen sometime in the summer of 2025.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And because I think I said, if you ever want to come and get a tour of Manitoba, I'll return the favor. And he's doing it, which I think is so awesome.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to give him a drive around and show him the super flatness of the Red River Valley, and then I'll go out to the more beautiful part of the province, which is where I come from, the western part.
I love that, like, too, where, like, how often do we meet people and have those kind of conversations where it's like, oh yeah, next time you're out, or next time I'm out, or next time, all that kind of stuff. And how many times it, falls flat or it just doesn't happen. But the odd time when it does, it's kind of fun because you do mean it, or they do mean it when they say next time you're out, you should come. And like,
not very many people come to Winnipeg for a vacation.
No,
but he's making a beeline to come to. Well, he's going to Toronto and then he's coming to Winnipeg. And I was going to remind him how far apart they are. but yeah, no, it's gonna be really fun. And I did a whole article about him for Country Guide.
Oh, nice.
And it ran sometime in the fall of 2024, so it's a few months old now. But
that's pretty neat. You can bring him by here.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess. Is that an extension theme? I guess it kind of is. It's those human connections.
We don't have to interview him. You can just bring him by the farm.
I'm just thinking, like, I'm rambling on about this great guy I met, but
right.
I don't know.
But you'll never meet him. We're doing extension because we value it.
Farmers are still looking for information, even while governments have pulled away from the job of extension. So like you said, the need's there, and there's fewer people actually doing extension, and so we thought we'd jump into that. And we hope that sponsors recognize that this service that we're offering and give us some support.
As much as we are doing that because we see a need and we have a passion for it, we're also doing it because we see a need among some of the groups that could be sponsors, and we see that they are also looking for new ways to extend.
If anybody else wants to step forward, we'd welcome their support as well. Hi, Justice. Good to see you. I'm Jay. We've met.
I'm Toban. We haven't, but I'm looking forward to the next hour.
And Justice, I'll introduce you. You're a communications specialist with the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food in Regina. And Regina is your hometown, so you didn't have to go far to find this job.
Yeah. It kind of stumbled upon me.
How?
How did it stumble upon you?
So I was working with the Ministry of Agriculture prior to that, and that's where I'd met Chris McKee, our Vice President of Business Development, and that's where I also met Collie Wood, who is our President and CEO. So I met Chris within my branch, and then I met Collie just in passing, and so I had like a bit of a relationship with them already.
And the National Circle is brand new. So
what do you mean brand new? Like how old is it?
We officially launched in January of this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So Collie and Chris, were they first on the scene, and then because they had met you through your work with the Ministry of Agriculture, they quickly brought you on board? Is that how it went?
Yeah, pretty much. So I have like a very small background in doing some social media stuff, and they thought that would be useful for doing their social media stuff because I'm more well versed than they are.
Yeah. Well, and you're sort of a generation that grew up more or less with social media. I definitely didn't. Toban's a bit younger than me, but maybe he didn't either.
I certainly didn't grow up with it. No.
Yeah.
No.
So what was it about your social media experience that was interesting for them?
So in my free time, I stream, like playing games and talking with people. So it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
So they use that prior experience to kind of base my experience for this position.
So streaming. Okay, this is
I'm going to really show our
this
age.
is old,
It's like,
old man stares at cloud or yells at cloud. So is that actually a social media, or is that more like when you're playing a game, you're talking with other people, other players? Is that so? It's kind of a closed community, or is this actually something that anybody could listen in on?
Oh, Jay, unbelievable.
So it's kind of like an all-encompassing thing. As a streamer, you're kind of in charge of your own social media accounts and kind of figuring out algorithms and hashtags to use and all the hip slang and lingo and whatnot. So like I've been posting on like Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. So
yeah, okay. So I understand all of those things, but it's like this streaming thing. So Toban, help me out here.
Well, what would be funny is because I would offer my kind of mansplaination or whatever.
So mansplain to me,
right?
Justice.
So which would be also completely off the mark, which would be also quite funny. But I'm really exposing myself here. Like I've seen this where people game, right? So there's gaming. I think what you're referring to is like headset, like you're talking to other players.
Yeah.
That you're playing with. So there's that kind of gaming, which Justice, you can interrupt anytime and just be like,
no, you go for it.
Thank you. You can dig your own hole. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but then there's some of the social media channels allow you. So you can actually watch the person play. Like, so there'd be a camera on me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I've seen that.
With the controller playing. And then in this corner of the screen, you'd actually have what they're doing, what their character's doing.
Yeah. Okay. And so you can watch that on YouTube or whatever.
Or there's certain like Twitch, I think, is one of them. Or
Yeah.
Right.
So Twitch is what I use. So yeah, it's basically I play a game. Other people will talk, and I can interact with them real time. And I like engaging with people like that. I like talking about the things that I'm playing, and I take a lot of interest in it. So. Yeah.
And do you is there any way to make that into a work conversation? Like, this is so interesting because I'm learning something that I didn't know anything about. But like if we wanted to somehow engage with you, I'm not going to say younger farmers because lots of people game and there's people my age who even know what you're talking about, even though I don't. But could you use that, and maybe you have used that as an extension tool? So or how would you could you create a game or a world where you lived and you did extension in the way that you're describing?
So it's funny that you say that. There's actually simulation games and there's farming simulation games.
I was going to ask you about that.
So it's like it's like fully in depth. Like it's a lot of what people would normally do in agriculture. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So if there's not something already, like if you're trying to say connect with Indigenous youth, because I know that's the mandate for the National Circle. Well, it's not the youth isn't just the mandate, but I mean that's part of what you're trying to achieve, and talk about opportunities with agriculture. Even talk about farming itself. Like, could you create? Do you think that would be an effective extension tool, where you create a simulated prairies or Saskatchewan farm scene and have youth participate or I don't know. I'm going to let you explain how that might work, because I just love this idea. I just don't know what I'm talking about.
I guess, yeah. It depends on how, what kind of channels you can connect with people on, really. If there are people who are involved in agriculture who are more inclined to playing video games, and absolutely that could be something that would be a front you can reach people on.
Well, so you asked your question, but I just want to come back to I just really think this is so interesting. The gamification, because a person who is my age said we need to gamify. I'm not using the right lingo, but I mean, like
100%, you're not using the right lingo.
Whatever.
I don't know how to correct
you. I think maybe some people might know what I'm talking about, but no, because gaming is such a huge part of our culture now. It's not mine, clearly, but to engage with people in a game that gets them to think about their actual real life practices. I think that's.
But so I think like. It's interesting, right? Because I think you're thinking about it as like building a game that could kind of do extension, right? Like a simulator.
But it would be like it wouldn't just be playing the game, although like the simulator. But it would be like having this, like what Justice is trying to describe to me, having a conversation with the participants.
Well, that's what I'm interested. I think it's interesting because growing up, like I grew up where video games were not. Like you got to get away from video games. Like kids are supposed to get off the screens and go outside, right? And you know, my wife's doing her master's in literacy, and there's an appreciation for gaming as a form of literacy, as its own language, as a literacy. So it's a place where you learn. You learn and you communicate, and I think it's really interesting when you think about extension that is I think it's a rich area for. Anyway, this is all on you, Justice.
Yeah.
I so
we've been talking for 10 minutes, and Justice has talked for about 30 seconds.
You just introduced these old guys to this new concept, and we're so excited.
Justice, what kind of games do you like to play?
I play a lot of like role playing games and like first-person shooters and sandbox games. I don't know if those mean anything to you.
Well, I got the first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Sandbox. What is that? I know it's not literally a sandbox. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb there. But
I mean, metaphorically, it's a sandbox. You're kind of given a base of tools, and you kind of build the game to be what you want it to be. It's not like a game dev thing, but like Minecraft. That's a sandbox game. I'm sure you heard of Minecraft.
Yeah, I have heard of that.
When you said game dev, I'm like looking at. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So it's.
So
but you're building stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I think of. Okay, and this isn't sandbox, but Fortnite. Like, because you're actually with. The game starts when there's 100 other actual people, real people, in the game, and then it starts. So I mean, and I'm sure gaming is just going to keep going that way. So just to bring it back to extension, and all this rambling that I've done, like, when you look at your people your age and younger, and getting them to talk about agriculture opportunities, what is effective?
I think community involvement is something that's a big, something that encourages a lot of people to want to get into agriculture or something other, because people do want to like continue to help their community thrive.
And this is community involvement, like real on the ground. This isn't virtual, although it could be, I guess. But I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, you actually need to get out in the fields and do the farming and take care of the livestock. So what have you done any community engagement yet? Like, what are some of the things that you've tried?
Yeah.
That's kind of a big question. I'd like to say I'm fairly involved with my community, and as in Regina. I part-time 2 Sundays a month I work for a harm reduction clinic as well. So that's kind of my way of getting involved with my community.
Yeah. So the Regina community. So that's you personally. And then with your National Circle job, like have you had a chance to go out into the community? And I know, I mean, you and I were on a bus tour together in August, and that's when we met. We went out to Callisis, and so we were in that community. But are you doing other projects like that? I know it's new, but I mean, have you got around to getting out there and meeting with young people?
Yeah. So we have we've been working with the Ochapowace First Nation a fair bit. We've established a community garden, and during harvest, they had a group of 5 grade 6 students come out to do the harvest. So that was really fun to connect with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Was it a bison harvest, or was it a grain harvest, or is it the community garden?
The harvest of their garden, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. What did you find really connected with those kids?
Just learning with them, honestly, because I don't have an agricultural background. So I'm like, oh, I don't know, is that the right size?
Right.
Is this how far you're supposed to dig down? Like, I was just kind of talking with Val Canistano. She's the head of the garden. Okay. And then with Michelle Sandercock, she's our director of business development. So he's asking them questions because of their background.
Well, I mean, we think about talking to high school students to get them to think about opportunities in agriculture when they're making college or university decisions. But the grade 6 approach, like, I think there's probably a lot to be said for that, because then that gives them that early taste of agriculture and gives them, 6 or whatever number of years to think about where they might want to take that. And was that a conscious approach to go after grade 6s?
It was actually the choice of Ochapowace. They had students come out, and they asked us if we wanted to join them, and I'm like, absolutely. I would love to join. And it was just fun seeing the kids, like, they were like, oh, look at this corn that I have, or look at this giant potato.
That is fun. That is awesome. Yeah. What are some of the other things the National Circle has done in ag?
So we have hosted a group of international students who were involved in agriculture, and we gave them a tour of the First Nations University where we used to work out of, and then we gave them a tour of Ochapowace, of their community garden, and then we also gave a presentation on us and hosted lunch for them. So it was really nice to connect with them as well. They're like early 20s students. So
why is it important for you to engage with First Nations youth? Like, why is that for you personally really important?
I think it's important because from the lens of someone who isn't involved in their community, like where my family's from, I think it's important to, like, really ground those roots and kind of base them off of something where you feel really connected to where you're from. And once you, like, build that connection, I feel like it goes a long way to not only connect with other people, but to, like, future generations as well.
Are you connecting with farmers as well? Like, is it a connection that with, like, Indigenous youth? Are you connecting them with other farmers, or how does that look?
I guess it kind of depends on what their goals are. Because we've connected with youth and entrepreneurs and farmers. I do know that Terry Leroy, who's a Reconciliate advisor, and he runs Callisis, the 4C Farms. I know that he's got his grandson who's going to be taking over his farm. So, like, it's really nice to hear stories like that, because it helps give perspectives of 2 different people, like the generation that wants to pass it down and the generation that wants to take it over. Then you can kind of get both sides of the coin.
Do you, like, most of the First Nations land on the prairies is not farmed by First Nations. Like Terry Leroy at 4C is an exception. I mean, there are others too, but I mean, is this something that the National Circle for Indigenous Ag and Food and you would like to see? Like, is this an objective to see more First Nations farming their own land?
Absolutely. I think it's important for the people who live on the land to be able to reap the benefits of their own land.
Yeah.
And how does that, like, what are the challenges?
I guess one big challenge would be ensuring that they have that land acquired. I know in a lot of cases they probably don't even own the land that should be theirs.
The individual, right. Or are we talking about
like a First Nation,
the nation itself?
Yeah.
Is there a way, like, it's a big question, Justice, but is there a way, like, for me as a grain farmer in southern Manitoba, would there be a way for me to connect with the the Indigenous people who first settled and grew stuff on the land that I now farm? Would there be a way for me to kind of figure out how to find this group and to and what does reconciliation look like or could it look like for me?
I think that would require just learning and just trying to dig into who did I get this land from, and then kind of, I know that there's like maps of which Indigenous nations were in what areas, and I've stumbled upon this interactive map actually that shows what kind of like First Nations were in what areas and what languages they speak. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, that is. If you wouldn't mind actually sending it to us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And just to build on what Toban was asking you, like in general, what do you need from the whole prairies community? Like, just so that we're not putting the First Nations communities in their own little space. I mean, we're part of the prairies together. What do you need from non-Indigenous people involved in agriculture? Is there an ask? Is there something you'd like people to keep in mind?
I think just keeping an open mind and being open to learning, because I do find that a lot of misconceptions can be based on people not being educated enough.
Yeah. And does that affect you? Like you personally, how does it feel going out into small towns? Like, is it, are we, like, is it a comfort for you, or do you always feel some tension? I'm just wondering what it's like for you.
I guess there's two different perspectives there. As an Indigenous person, there's a bit of apprehension. I lost my train of thought.
I was just
no worries.
And I mean, that's a heavy question.
It is.
I know,
a heavy question.
And I mean, we can move on. I do want to talk about your mom's community, the Zagame. Is that how you say it?
Zagame, yeah.
Zagame. Okay,
yeah.
And that's the eastern part of Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
Did you spend time there as a kid? Like, do you feel like you're connected to that community?
No, unfortunately not. I grew up in the concrete jungle, and so did my mom and her siblings.
Oh, yeah.
So we have been in the city for a couple generations. But since I began working for the Circle, I have felt more like inclination to finding my roots again and kind of like replanting myself into my roots, because I do feel disconnected.
You haven't done it yet, or is it a slow process, or how does that work?
It's a bit of a slow process, because I'm not treaty, and So I just kind of feel like disconnected from my own people in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's kind of interesting. And because my mom and her siblings didn't grow up on the reserve either, it's kind of hard to form those connections in the first place.
Is that right, eh? Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
distant relatives there? Like, would that be the way to kind of ease into or make those connections again?
Yeah, actually, all the Acooses are related. So I mean, the chief is related to me somehow. I don't know how, but we are related.
I was looking at Zagami online, and I don't know whether this was up to date, but the chief was a woman, and maybe that's still your relative. But I think 5 or 6 of the counselors were also women, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know whether that's common, but do you think, I mean, that as agriculture is adopted, and I mean, I mean, the grandmothers as the farmers and the food providers is I think a big part of the history. So do you feel like women will be important leaders as this goes forward, or does it matter? Like, does gender really matter?
I think it would be nice to see a lot of strong women leadership, because I do think that it is important.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of sacred values and traditions that can be passed on through a woman, but it doesn't also need to be like gender based.
Yeah,
because even Indigenous people are kind of breaking out of the gender norms, because there are gender norms within Indigenous cultures as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but what does the National Circle do? Like, what is its mandate?
To act as the bridge between Indigenous people and community, and government, academia, and like-minded organizations.
Are you actively finding kind of opportunities, or do people come to you, or is it a bit of both, or how does that look?
It is a lot of both. We do have people coming to us as they hear what our organization does. Not only producers, but also people who want to help producers. But also trying to get the word out of our organization and what we can do to help. So we've gone to several events over the past year. We've gone to powwows, and we've gone to agriculture conferences all across the nation. And Chris and Collie have actually gone down to the States for a couple of egg conferences. It's incredible that once people hear about what we do, how many people contact us after.
Is that right, eh? Huh.
And you make a good point that it's based in Regina, but it's not a Saskatchewan institution. It's prairies and even national. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you go to an ag conference, say like a traditional ag conference, and like you're there, what are you telling kind of attendees that you find really resonates with them?
I think one key takeaway people have is that we are hoping to be a business accelerator for Indigenous businesses and entrepreneurs.
Have you had conversations about that yet?
We've had a few entrepreneurs who have furthered their business through us. We have a woman who has a pre-made like bannock mix, and we've helped her with like get funding for labeling and packaging, and she moved from creating her product out of her home to like a facility that produces it. So it's really cool to see where our work gets us, and not only gets us but gets other people, because we're not profiting from these people with their businesses. We're just the bridge between the two, like the funding and the entrepreneur, or the funding and the business. And it's amazing to see and hear the stories.
Yeah. I believe you. Yeah.
Well, what's the most rewarding part of your job so far?
I love just being able to connect with people, honestly. Like being able to hear different stories and be able to take part in different things. Like with Ochapowace, I was able to go there for the cultivation of the land, and then the seeding ceremony, and then the harvest. Like it's amazing to be able to see it, like beginning to end, and then to be able to see it next year. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah.
Is this the community garden again, or is this full scale farms?
Yeah. So they are working on more funding for an orchard, and it's just incredible to see how far they're going.
What is it about a Ochapowace that we can learn from? Like, is it about the one person, that leader, Ms. Canistino? Can't remember if you said that was the chief, but that I know you did mention her. Like, is that where it starts? Is one good leader, or is there something else about Ochapowace that creates a good model for other places?
I think like there's a few members of Ochapowace who we've worked with. There's Lester Henry as well. He's one of the elders. I think being able to build the relationship with them, because Michelle and Chris have been having conversations with Ochapowace since before I started. So these conversations were already being had and meetings being held, like surveying the land and the soil levels and water source. And because they're like where their community garden is situated, it's really close to Regina. So they're kind of like our pilot for seeing what needs to be done for a community garden. And we're both learning together in this process.
And when do you feel like you'll have something that you can take, and then say if another First Nation was interested, you could say, okay, we've got this person from Ochapowace, and maybe I'll join, and we'll come and we'll show you how to do it. So you're, like you said, it's that person to person contact, and you're actually taking these ideas right into the community. Like, are you to the point now where in 2025 you can start taking that approach and sharing it around?
It's funny that you say that, because just on the 30th of October, we had a roundtable with about 30 attendees, and they're all from different communities within Saskatchewan. I think some from Manitoba as well, and Alberta. And then some people who work within like governments who have helped their projects. So some of the projects were the community gardens and orchards, and we compiled information from those projects into a binder, and we actually handed out binder to the community members to take that information for any of the projects that they're going to be working on. So we've kind of already had that conversation.
Oh, right on.
That's
Great.
awesome. Yeah. No, for sure.
Like, when you think of your communications training, and we kind of talked about the best way and the community, and we had that fun conversation about gaming, which we can come back to at any time. But are there other techniques that you look forward to trying? Like, this podcast is about extension, which is like, it's kind of an old term, but it's like a government term where you took an agriculture idea or research and you extended it to the farmers. So there's often real people working in local offices doing that extension. So that's where we got our podcast name. And I'm just thinking, like, and communications is a huge part of sharing agriculture knowledge. So I'm wondering what ideas you'd like to try in this extension, this idea of extending ideas or extension.
So there's a few programs that we have coming up and are hoping to pilot next year that I would kind of like to integrate with social media. So one of them is a cookbook with recipes and ingredients from a First Nation community, where an elder will share and like pass down the knowledge to the youth. And what I'd like to implement with that is creating a video and having like demonstrations of creating a recipe or like cooking a recipe, and the elders sharing their story and what resonates with them about this specific dish that they want to share. So I'd like to implement that as like a sort of ongoing series for our social media platforms.
Yeah.
How are we with capturing all of the knowledge in the heads of elders? Like, is that, are we good at that now? Have we captured that knowledge? Like the cookbook, I think, is an excellent way to remember those old recipes and practices, and your manual on how to grow gardens with elders' input. Like, is there more work to do in capturing this knowledge?
I think so. I think there's a lot of work that can be done to really help like memorialize, I guess, the kind of information that they have and to keep it alive. We have another partnership with a lady who created an app where it's kind of like social media, but it's more like private, and people can upload like pictures and videos and share like audio clips, and people can comment on it, but it's kind of like a way to keep that alive. So we're going to be implementing that with a few things as well.
And does that, I mean, for you, is this all very rewarding? Like, it sounds like it would be, but I mean, does it feel like you're doing good work?
Yeah. What gets you most excited?
Yeah, I honestly say that I love my job, and I don't know how many people can really say that and genuinely mean it, but just every aspect of my job I just love.
No, that's awesome.
How could the greater agriculture community help you? Like, is there something you wish you could do more of that you just need some help?
I just wish that we could break down barriers and just get rid of like any sort of like negative history that people remember of like some people still have their like their stereotypes that they think of people from either side of it, like from Indigenous people or from other like government or academia or anyone else. I think there just needs to not be like a divide. Like, we're all people. We're all human.
Does it surprise you that it's still like in this world of sort of easy access, social media, all these online communities? Does it surprise you that those barriers are still so strong? Doesn't.
Unfortunately, no. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I just remember something Eugene Ross told me, and he's an elder at Sioux Valley near Brandon, and he says, like, we've been living side by side for 150 years and you still don't know who we are. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. Yeah. So is that how it feels from your perspective? Or maybe Regina's different because you grew up in Regina, but yeah.
I don't think it's really that much different. I think across Canada it's not going to be much different. Unfortunately, yeah, that's the way it seems.
Do you have a sense of how those barriers can be broken down?
I think that just comes back again to just being open and wanting to learn, because it does come down to just miseducation and not knowing.
When you're at these events, do you get a sense that there is an interest in wanting to learn?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like fantastic. There's people who always want to hear, especially when you've got such a powerful voice on stage like Collie. Collie can really get a whole crowd listening to what she has to say because of how she says it and just what she has to share. I think she always has a powerful, resonating message.
Sorry to I get excited and then I just start wanting to. But so can you tell me how she does it?
I wish I knew. She's I think it's just her personality and her conviction in her voice that can really get the attention of people. Like, she's just, every time she stands up, I'm excited to hear what she has to say. That might be biased, though.
But that is a gift, isn't it? To be able to speak and engage and just get and inspire people. Is that what she ultimately tries to do? Is inspire?
Yeah,
people?
Yeah. I think that's very much what she likes to do. I think that's what one of her goals is, for sure.
And is that needed? Like, is that, like, when you think of the youth who you're really passionate about, like, is there a need for someone like Collie to inspire them?
I don't think there's necessarily a need for someone like Collie to inspire them. I think there's just a need for someone like Collie to inspire someone within a community to help spark. Like, it's like wildfire. If it starts with one person, I think it'll spread to a lot of people. Like, I think it just needs to connect with one person.
Well, I think do you feel like that could be you? Like, do you have ambition? Like, do you see how you could really make a difference?
I like to think that I do. I can't say for sure that I think that could be me. I don't know if I don't think I'm convincing enough. I don't know. But I do like to share the story of my organization and the work that I do with people, because I'm excited about it. I'm excited about my work. And I share it with anyone, even if they have no idea what I'm talking about.
But does the National Circle like have a like operate on a grand vision for agriculture in Canada? Like how it would like to see it change, or what is the ideal?
I think the grand vision would be just having Indigenous people included the same way as every other producer is, and making sure that they have the same access and the same support as every other producer.
Yeah, it's an equal playing field for everyone. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So when you think National Circle, quite new, you said January of this year, which is, that's quite new. What does growth look like? Is it, are you setting up like bureaus in other provinces, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would think that we would like to get a more, like, we are involved nationally, like coast to coast. But I think it's a matter of having more bodies. And I know that we're looking at setting up offices in other cities. So I think in the grand scheme of things, we'd have multiple offices across Canada with staff, so that there isn't a disconnect with our staff who are only in Regina.
Right. Yeah.
And we do have other staff. Like, we've got a secondment with Wendy Carnegie. She's with the government of Manitoba, I think.
As Manitobans, we should know, but we don't. Yeah.
So she's been working with us as well. So it's nice to know that we've already got legs in other places.
Is there a way for, like, like me as a farmer and other farmers who are going to be listening to this to support the National Circle in any way, or what can we do?
I guess if there was a way for anyone else to support, it would be to share who we are and what we do and what we're passionate about.
Do you talk to your mom about the job?
She was the first person I told.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and she tells other people about me.
She's very proud of you. Yeah, that's excellent. And what does what you're doing mean to her?
It's a lot of jargon to her, because again, we did grow up within the city, so
yeah.
She doesn't really have any familiarity with agriculture either.
Yeah.
But she's excited regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tiana, who I met, she was a summer student. She, I mean, when I saw the two of you out in the field that day, I thought these are two people who are really incredibly valuable people. And you were just so interested in the crops and the plants and how they grew and what they looked like. So if you look back at the last year, is there a moment that you're really excited, like you would tell your mom about, or tell Annie about, or tell us about? Like, was there a moment where you just realized that, yeah, I'm doing the right thing?
Yeah. I think just any event that I get to attend, like I can't really pinpoint one thing, but like when we hosted our AGM, it was exciting to see all of those, like the big suits in the room. And then our like the international students, that was so cool to see that they're like how engaged they were, even though they're not even from Canada. And then our Indigenous Ag Tour, that was also really, like, it's just cool to see the things that we plan and seeing the turnout for them is so exciting to me.
Yeah. And just back to your, when you first met Chris and Collie in your time with the Ministry of Agriculture, what got you into that job in the first place? Like, how did you find agriculture then with your
and like further to that, what were you doing at the Ministry of Ag?
So how did you find the ministry?
So excited.
How did that open up? How did that opportunity open up for you? And then what did you do at the ministry?
So I had applied to the summer student position, and it was just to the ministry, just to the government of Saskatchewan, to their summer student program. So I didn't really get a choice on which ministry I was going to be with. And I was studying office administration at the time. So I got a phone call from someone with the Ministry of Ag asking if I wanted to come in for an interview. And I was like, yep. So it was with the livestock branch with the Ministry of Agriculture. And I was reconciling files for them.
Okay. Oh, wow. I mean, that was your first introduction. I think, well, that might finish me off.
Right. Well, no, I think your question's even more interesting that you actually stayed with agriculture after doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, thank goodness for Collie and Chris bringing you over to the national circle, because I'm not sure that would have been a real long-lasting job. But I don't want to assume. So it was reconciling files interesting?
So I've got ADHD, so monotonous work is kind of nice sometimes because I know what to expect. But after my summer, I was asked back by my director if I wanted to come back and work part-time while I was still in classes. So I did that for another 3 months. And then I was tapped on the shoulder to ask if I wanted to do an interview for a different position, which was an administrative position with a different branch, which I ended up doing for 15 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I didn't stay in the reconciliation.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good. But it was still within agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, when we asked you to be on this podcast, it might have seemed like it was out of the blue, but I was just so impressed meeting you. Was there something that you wrote down that you thought, I really want to talk to Jay and Toban about this? Like, was there something that you really wanted to talk about that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
Not necessarily. I was more kind of like, what can I bring?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm to bring it full circle back to that conversation at the beginning where I was completely lost, but I was, and I can't think of any word but would gamify, but I was talking with someone else my age about how it actually could be a critically important tool to reach any young person involved in really any industry. I mean, it seems like a good way to teach, I like hearing about new extension tools, and this is the first time I've thought about these online gaming-based communities, but to build a knowledge through that. Oh, it's really exciting for me. Like, and how would you envision that if you were to take on
something? Like if someone was to say, like, here's a project, it's big in scope, but we want you to lead it.
Yeah,
like, and it's like,
I want you to design.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Mike's yours, Justice.
So like in regards to like gaming?
Yeah, like if we went to some game designer and said, we want to engage young people in agriculture, show them all the opportunities within agriculture, and we want it to be fun, like a game. Now go and build us something. Like, like seriously, I think there's something there.
I do think a lot of that would like the farming simulation I was telling you about.
Yeah.
I do know people who play that. Like they don't even have an agricultural background and they play it for hours. Like they're out there like on the combine and like buying cattle and yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't want to make a game.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about like, we don't actually need to develop anything. It's happening.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
true.
How do we get into those conversations, right? How do we participate in
and
that?
make that? But like, so there's learning, but it's fun. Like Grand Theft Auto, say you don't want to learn how to steal cars and drive around and run over people. But I mean, that's fun in that simulated world, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be something that people will spend 4 or 5 hours a day doing. You don't want it don't want it to feel like work. Yeah. Oh, do you have any other questions?
I mean, I could talk about
I could.
I have a lot more questions, but we should probably wrap.
I couldn't talk about gaming for hours. I'm already way out of my depth, but I do really like the idea, Justice, and thanks for sharing that. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.
And I want to stay connected with the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food. I think it's a really interesting initiative, and this idea that we're all prairie folk. How do we work better together? Or how do we make this a community where everyone participates?
Yeah, and we'll certainly share on our feeds about what the National Circle does, and I'd love that interactive map. I think would be fantastic as well. But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
So that was a great conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Justice is fairly new in the job, so it's tough. We put her in a tough spot because we were asking her all these questions about, extension techniques that she really doesn't have a ton of experience with. But at the same time, it's really important to connect with younger people who have a different idea of how to get ideas across. And we probably flogged the game idea to death in that conversation. But I really like it, and you could tell I was probably getting a little too excited about that. But
yeah, you needed to calm down a little bit. But I do think that's a really important element of this all, right? Because this podcast is about extension, and that is a I think a relatively, at least by us, unexplored extension medium is gaming, but it is such a huge part of so many people's lives. Like it really is.
Well, it's twice the size as the film industry or something like that. I don't, but I've heard massive stats. Like
yeah. Like I mean, my wife teaches grade 4. Like it's a part of the fabric of kids' life. It's just they game, and I'm like, it's I find it fascinating because it's a stigma. Like when I was a kid, it was always like, don't do it, right? Like you're going to rot your brain. But like that is so not the case. Like it's engaging. Like we heard, like she talks with people while she's gaming. And I think it's a great way for people to find community and learn,
Have you been to a First Nation?
In earnest, no.
Yeah.
No.
And I mean, growing up, I grew up in Southwest Manitoba, and we played baseball against Sioux Valley. So from time to time, we would go up to Sioux Valley and play baseball games. But no, it was not like Eugene Ross told me. We've been living side by side for all of these years, and there's not a lot of meshing of community.
Yeah, that was poignant. Like that like, and you don't know who we are.
Yeah, it's amazing, eh?
It is.
Yeah.
It was interesting hearing her talk about, you know, breaking down barriers, and I think that's important.
And that's one of the things that the National Circle is trying to do. Is it's not, I mean, obviously Indigenous Agriculture and Food is within the title, but it's about reaching out to the whole community of agriculture on the prairies and in Canada. It'll be really interesting to see how the organization builds and adapts on that.
Yeah, I agree. I could see there being a lot of interest, actually. I'm not surprised when she said when they go to events that there's lots of engagement.
Yeah.
I think it's something that hangs over a lot of farmers' heads. Even, you know, some may not think about it like too deeply, but even just the curiosity of even agricultural practices that aren't around anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like and what it used to look like, and you know, and some of those things. I know I'm like, I'm very curious about that, and yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Justice Acoose, very interesting. And I really appreciate her jumping on the call with us. I mean, that's, like I said, she's bringing new ideas, but doesn't have a ton of experience yet. But it was sure great to hear from her.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed that.
Thanks for listening. This has been The Extensionists. We are The Extensionists. Conversations with great thinkers in agriculture. I'm Jay Whetter.
And I'm Toban Dyck.
Thanks for listening. Till next time. This has been a Burr Forest Group production. We also want to thank the people you don't see.
We're here, we're chatting away with our guests, but there's tons of people who work behind the scenes to make this podcast happen.
Ryan Sanchi is our director.
Ashley Robinson is the coordinator.
And Abby Wall is our producer and editor.